Welcome to DeepRest, your place to relax and unwind. Subscribe now and join us for peaceful moments.
You wake up slowly, not with fear or confusion, but with a calm awareness that feels unfamiliar, as if the world itself has decided to speak more softly today. And for a few moments you simply lie still, listening, noticing the weight of the blanket over your body, the steady rhythm of your breathing, the gentle light filtering through a window nearby. And something feels different. Not wrong, not dangerous, just quieter, as though the volume of existence has been turned down. There is no alarm ringing, no distant traffic, no voices leaking through walls, only a deep, enveloping silence that hums gently around you. And as you sit up in the bed, you realize that the air itself feels lighter, cleaner, untouched by urgency, and the room around you looks exactly as it should. Familiar furniture, soft shadows, dust floating lazily in a beam of morning light, nothing out of place, nothing threatening, and yet the absence of sound continues to wrap itself around you like a thick, peaceful fog. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and place your feet on the floor, feeling its cool surface ground you in the present moment. And you take a slow breath, noticing that your body feels rested in a way it rarely does, as if you have slept not just through the night, but through weeks of accumulated stress. And when you stand, there is no rush, no reason to hurry, because instinctively you understand that nothing is chasing you, nothing is waiting to harm you, and this understanding settles deep in your chest like a quiet truth. You walk toward the window, gently pull the curtain aside, and what you see does not alarm you, it simply confirms the stillness you already feel. The street outside is empty, cars are parked where they were left, doors closed, leaves scattered across the asphalt, unmoving, and there are no people. No animals, no signs of activity at all, just a peaceful snapshot of a world paused mid-breath. And as your eyes travel slowly across the scene, you notice that nothing appears damaged or destroyed. There are no fires, no smoke, no chaos frozen in time, only absence, a soft, complete absence of motion and sound. A thought forms gently in your mind, not as panic, but as curiosity, the kind that drifts rather than strikes, and you acknowledge it without resistance. Something has happened, the world has changed, and yet you are safe, completely and undeniably safe, and this certainty feels as natural as gravity. You turn away from the window and move through your home, noticing how each room holds the same quiet patience, the kitchen untouched, a cup resting where it was last placed, the clock on the wall still ticking softly, marking time, even though time itself feels less important now. And you realize that electricity still works, water still runs, the basic systems of life continue without demand or struggle, and this realization brings a subtle comfort, a reassurance that survival is not a task you must fight for today. You pour yourself a glass of water and drink slowly, feeling it cool and steady as it moves through you, grounding you further. And you take another deep breath, allowing your shoulders to relax, your jaw stripped now of explosions, screams, and terror, reduced instead to a simple truth: the old noise is gone. You sit for a moment at the table, letting the silence stretch comfortably, and you notice how your senses begin to adjust, how small sounds become clearer, the faint hum of electricity, the soft creak of the building settling, your own breathing moving in and out like a tide. And in this heightened awareness, you feel more present than you have in a very long time, as if the world has finally given you permission to slow down. Eventually, you decide to step outside, not because you must, but because curiosity gently invites you to. And when you open the door, the air greets you cool and still, carrying no scent of danger, only the neutral smell of morning, concrete, distant trees, and you step onto the street without fear, your footsteps sounding louder than expected in the absence of everything else. And for a moment, you pause, simply standing there, letting the silence confirm itself from every direction. You walk slowly, deliberately, noticing details that would once have been swallowed by noise, the texture of walls, the way sunlight reflects off windows, the soft rustle of leaves when a rare breeze passes through, and the city feels less like a place abandoned in panic and more like a place gently set aside, preserved, waiting, and this thought settles comfortably within you. As you move farther, you see signs that others were once here, doors left unlocked, shops stocked but unattended, a bicycle resting against a lamppost, and instead of dread, you feel a strange tenderness toward these traces of life, a quiet respect for whatever moment caused the world to step away without struggle. Somewhere in the back of your mind, the idea of zombies exists, but it feels distant, theoretical, like a story you once heard, because there is no evidence of threat, no groans, no movement in shadows, no tension pulling at your instincts, and you understand without needing proof that if anything dangerous remains, it is far away, dormant, irrelevant to this moment. And this certainty allows your body to remain loose, unguarded, calm. Eventually, you return to your home, not because you're afraid to stay outside, but because it feels right to establish a center, a place of rest, and as you close the door behind you, the silence inside welcomes you back like a familiar presence, and you realize that waking up in this quiet apocalypse has not taken something from you, but given you something rare, space, time, and safety. And as you sit down once more, allowing your breathing to slow, your thoughts to drift, the world outside remains still, patient, and non-threatening, and you understand that this is only the beginning, not of danger, but of a slow, gentle exploration of a world that has finally learned how to be quiet. As you begin to move farther into the world beyond your immediate surroundings, the silence reveals itself not as emptiness, but as a presence, something vast and gentle that stretches in every direction, wrapping streets, buildings, and open spaces in a soft, uninterrupted calm. And as you walk, you realize that this quiet is layered, textured, filled with subtle details that only emerge when nothing competes for attention. The faint whisper of wind sliding between structures, the distant creak of metal expanding under sunlight, the muted echo of your own footsteps carrying farther than they ever could before. And instead of unsettling you, these sounds ground you, reminding you that the world still functions, still breathes, simply without urgency or crowding. The city unfolds slowly around you, intersections empty yet intact, traffic lights cycling through colors for no one in particular, crosswalk signals clicking softly into the air, performing their duties faithfully even in the absence of witnesses. And you find comfort in this persistence, in the idea that systems continue not because they are demanded to, but because continuity itself is a kind of quiet promise. Storefront windows reflect the sky above, undisturbed, revealing interiors that look paused rather than abandoned, shelves stocked, chairs neatly arranged, handwritten signs still taped to doors, and as you peer inside, you feel no sense of loss or fear, only a gentle curiosity, as though you were walking through a museum of recent moments, each object still holding the warmth of ordinary life. The streets themselves feel wider now, liberated from traffic and crowds, and you walk down the center of the road without hesitation, feeling the solid ground beneath you, noticing cracks in the asphalt, faded paint lines, small plants beginning to push through seams where concrete once dominated completely. And this slow reclaiming by nature feels peaceful rather than ominous, a quiet reminder that life adapts without drama. As you continue, you notice how your own mind begins to mirror the world's stillness, thoughts stretching out, slowing down, no longer jumping urgently from one concern to another, but drifting like clouds across a wide sky, and memories surface, not as distractions, but as gentle companions, moments from your past rising and fading without emotional weight, simply acknowledged and released. And this mental spaciousness feels rare, almost sacred. You pass through residential neighborhoods where houses sit patiently, curtains drawn or left open, gardens slightly overgrown but still vibrant, flowers blooming unchecked, and birds hop freely across lawns and rooftops, unbothered by human presence, their movements calm, unafraid, as if they too sense that nothing in this world seeks to harm them, and their quiet chirps punctuate the silence not as alarms, but as soft confirmations of safety. Occasionally you glimpse something that once might have triggered fear, a shadow at the end of a street, a distant shape near an intersection, but as you approach, it always resolves into something harmless, a fallen sign, a pile of debris, a coat caught on a fence, and each time your body remains relaxed, learning again and again that tension is unnecessary here. The idea of zombies, of threat, of violence fades further into abstraction, becoming little more than a label attached to a reality that does not behave violently at all. And you understand now that this apocalypse is not defined by destruction, but by absence, by the removal of noise, pressure, and expectation. Time behaves differently in this silent world, minutes stretching comfortably, hours passing without urgency, and you stop checking the position of the sun or the clock, allowing your internal rhythm to guide you instead, resting when you feel tired, moving when curiosity gently nudges you forward, and this alignment feels natural, as though this is how life was always meant to be experienced. You enter a large, open square where once people must have gathered, and now the space feels expansive, almost ceremonial, sunlight pooling on stone surfaces, wind tracing slow patterns through scattered leaves, and you sit for a while on a bench, letting the quiet surround you fully, noticing how even your breathing has softened, slowed, deepened, matching the pace of the world around you. From this vantage point, you begin to sense the scale of what has changed, not with dread, but with calm acceptance, recognizing that while humanity may be absent, the essence of the world remains intact, resilient, balanced. And this realization removes any lingering sense of urgency to fix or escape the situation, because nothing feels broken. As you rise and continue walking, you notice how your awareness expands outward, taking in larger patterns, the way streets curve gently, how buildings catch light differently as the day progresses, how shadows lengthen without haste, and you feel less like a survivor navigating danger, and more like a quiet observer moving through a living landscape that has chosen rest. Eventually, hunger arrives, not sharply, but as a soft reminder, and you return to a familiar store, selecting food without concern for scarcity, preparing a simple meal back in your shelter. And as you eat, the act feels grounding, nourishing not just your body, but your sense of stability, reinforcing the understanding that survival here is not a struggle, but a routine. As evening approaches, the world shifts gently, light dimming, temperatures cooling, and the silence deepens rather than intensifies, wrapping the city in a calm twilight, street lights flickering on one by one, illuminating empty roads with warm pools of light, and you walk beneath them without fear, feeling held rather than exposed. The quiet world does not demand anything from you, does not test you, does not threaten you. It simply exists alongside you, allowing you to exist fully within it. And as you eventually return to your shelter, settling in for the night, you realize that this silent apocalypse is not something to endure, but something to inhabit, a world stripped down to its calmest elements, offering safety, space, and the rare gift of uninterrupted stillness. And as you lie down, listening to the soft hum of the quiet world outside, your thoughts slow further, drifting effortlessly, carried by the knowledge that nothing lurks in the dark, nothing waits to disturb you, and that tomorrow a silence will still be there, patient, gentle, and unchanged. As the days pass gently in this quiet world, exploration becomes less about discovering places and more about inhabiting moments, and you find yourself moving slower without effort, pausing not because you are tired, but because there is no longer any reason not to pause. And when you step outside each morning, the air feels consistent, dependable, carrying the same calm neutrality that has come to define this place. And you walk without destination, allowing streets to choose you rather than the other way around, turning corners simply because they are there, noticing how familiar areas slowly reveal new details when observed without haste, a mural faded by sun and rain, a shop sign creaking softly in the breeze, a row of windows reflecting clouds drifting lazily across the sky. You begin to understand the city not as a map of locations, but as a sequence of sensations, textures, and light, and your footsteps trace patterns that feel almost meditative, echoing lightly and then dissolving back into silence. And even your thoughts seem to follow this rhythm, arriving softly, lingering briefly, and then fading without resistance. Occasionally you enter buildings that once held purpose, a library where books still line the shelves in quiet order, their pages untouched, yet full of voices waiting patiently. A cafe where chairs remain pushed neatly beneath tables, cups resting where they were last set down. And these spaces feel less abandoned than preserved, as though time itself stepped aside respectfully, allowing everything to remain exactly as it was. And you sit in these places without unease, letting their atmosphere settle around you, feeling how walls and objects hold memory without demanding attention. Outside, nature continues its slow reclaiming, vines creeping along brickwork, grass emerging between tiles, birds nesting freely where noise once kept them away. And you notice how this process unfolds without conflict, without urgency, simply responding to opportunity. And this quiet cooperation between the built world and the natural one feels deeply soothing, as if the planet itself has relaxed its shoulders. You begin to develop a gentle routine, waking with the light, preparing simple meals, walking during the warmest hours, resting when the afternoon grows quiet and heavy with stillness. And this rhythm anchors you, creating a sense of continuity that requires no planning or anticipation, only presence. And each action, no matter how small, feels complete in itself. Sometimes you stop simply to listen, not because you expect to hear something, but because the act of listening has become a way of grounding yourself. And in these moments, the silence reveals its depth, a vast acoustic space where even the smallest sound becomes meaningful. The flutter of wings overhead, the distant settling of a building, your own breath expanding and contracting slowly. And these sounds feel intimate rather than intrusive, like gentle confirmations that the world is alive and stable. There are moments when you notice how your body has changed since waking into this world, muscles less tense, movements smoother, breathing deeper, as if your nervous system has finally recognized that it no longer needs to prepare for impact. And this physical calm feeds back into your thoughts, creating a loop of ease that grows stronger with each passing day. You explore farther now, moving beyond the immediate neighborhood into areas that once might have felt unfamiliar, industrial zones humming quietly without machines, parks stretching wide and open without crowds, bridges arching over still water that reflects the sky with near-perfect clarity, and each place greets you with the same neutrality, offering no resistance, no threat, no demand, simply existing alongside you. Occasionally, you encounter signs of the world's former noise, a billboard advertising something no longer needed, a bus schedule listing routes that will never run again, and instead of sadness, these artifacts evoke a soft nostalgia, a reminder of how full and complex life once was, and how that complexity has now condensed into something simpler, quieter, and unexpectedly gentle. The concept of danger has nearly vanished from your awareness, not because you suppress it, but because nothing reinforces it, and even the word zombie feels increasingly abstract, a leftover label that does not match the reality you experience, and your mind releases it gradually, like a story you no longer need to tell yourself. As evening arrives each day, the city transforms subtly, shadows lengthening, light cooling, windows darkening one by one, and you move through this transition calmly, feeling no need to retreat or fortify, knowing that night brings no additional risk, only a deeper layer of quiet. And when you return to your shelter, it feels less like a refuge and more like a chosen resting place. Inside, you light a lamp or candle, its warm glow carving a small circle of light in the surrounding stillness, and you sit or lie down, allowing the day's impressions to drift through your mind without clinging to any of them. And sleep comes easily, not as escape, but as continuation, a natural extension of the calm that fills your waking hours. Over time, you realize that exploration here is not about covering distance, but about deepening familiarity, about learning how it feels to exist without urgency, without threat, without constant stimulation, and this realization settles into you quietly, reshaping your understanding of safety and presence. The world does not challenge you to survive, it invites you to observe, to inhabit, to slow down enough to feel the subtle richness of stillness. And as you drift through another day of gentle wandering, routine, and rest, the story of this quiet apocalypse continues not through action or conflict, but through the simple, steady unfolding of calm awareness, carrying you forward effortlessly, preparing you without force or announcement for an even deeper sense of refuge and ease yet to come. Eventually, without any dramatic decision or moment of urgency, you find yourself gravitating toward a place that feels different from the others, not because it is stronger or more fortified, but because it carries a quiet sense of permanence, a building that seems to breathe at the same slow rhythm as you do. And when you step inside, the air feels slightly warmer, softer, as if the space itself has been waiting to be occupied again, welcoming presence rather than resisting it. And you take your time exploring each room, noticing how light falls through the windows in long, steady patterns, how walls mute sound in a comforting way, how the floor supports your steps without echoing too sharply. And this place does not feel like a hiding spot, but like a home gently rediscovered. You move through it slowly, opening cupboards, checking doors and windows, not out of fear, but out of familiarity, learning its layout the way one learns the rhythm of a familiar song. And everything you find reinforces the same truth, that nothing here is broken, nothing is decaying rapidly, nothing suggests that danger ever rushed through this space. And this consistency allows your body to relax even further, shoulders dropping, breath deepening, movements becoming unhurried and smooth. Outside, the world remains silent and unchanged, but inside this shelter, the silence takes on a different quality, more intimate, more personal, wrapping itself around you like a thick blanket, and you begin to arrange small details without thinking too much about it, placing objects where they feel right, clearing a surface, setting aside a place to rest, and these simple acts of organization bring a sense of grounding that goes beyond practicality, reinforcing the idea that you are not merely passing through, but settling gently into continuity. Days begin to form a predictable rhythm around this shelter, mornings filled with soft light and still air, afternoons marked by quiet exploration and return, evenings settling into warm lamplight and long stretches of calm, and the repetition does not dull your awareness, but sharpens it, making each small variation noticeable and meaningful, the way clouds differ from day to day, the way shadows shift slightly as seasons change, and this predictability becomes a source of deep comfort rather than monotony. You store food not because you fear scarcity, but because the act itself feels stabilizing, reassuring, a quiet agreement between you and the world that tomorrow will arrive just as gently as today. And when you prepare meals, the process feels meditative, the sounds of movement and preparation filling the space softly, never intruding, never breaking the calm, and eating becomes an act of presence rather than necessity. At night, the shelter holds the darkness at a respectful distance, windows framing the quiet outside without exposing you to it, walls grounding you, ceiling above offering a sense of enclosure that feels protective without being confining. And you sleep deeply, not because you are exhausted, but because your body recognizes safety fully now, releasing layers of vigilance it may have carried for years, and dreams, if they come, are slow and untroubled, dissolving easily upon waking. Occasionally, you sit near a window or doorway and simply observe the world from within this place, noticing how nothing approaches with urgency, how no sounds creep closer, how the absence of threat remains consistent and dependable. And this consistency teaches your nervous system something new, that safety can be sustained, that calm does not need to be temporary. The idea of fortification never arises. There is no impulse to barricade or prepare defenses, because the shelter's strength lies not in resistance, but in harmony with its surroundings. And you feel that this place belongs naturally within the quiet world, neither opposing it nor isolating you from it. Over time, the shelter becomes more than a location. It becomes an extension of your inner state, reflecting the calm you carry, reinforcing it when needed. And when you leave to explore, you do so lightly, knowing you will return not to escape danger, but to rest in familiarity. The concept of apocalypse has almost completely lost its meaning now, replaced by a simpler understanding that the world has entered a long pause. And within that pause, you have found a steady point, a place where nothing presses in on you, nothing demands reaction, nothing disturbs your equilibrium. As evenings stretch longer and nights grow deeper, the shelter holds you effortlessly, and the quiet inside blends seamlessly with the quiet outside, creating a continuous field of stillness that feels unbroken. And in this space, you sense that you are no longer merely surviving a changed world, but participating in a new kind of existence, one defined by rest, routine, and a profound sense of safety. And as you settle into another night within these walls, breathing slow and steady, the story moves gently forward, not toward conflict or resolution, but toward something softer still, a final dissolving into calm, where even the idea of story begins to fade. As time continues to pass without being counted, the distinction between days and nights begins to soften, and the world around you settles into a steady, unchanging calm where nothing needs to be anticipated and nothing asks for attention. And within your shelter, routine becomes so natural that it no longer feels like routine at all, but simply the way things are, the way breathing is, the way light arrives in the morning and fades again without announcement. And you notice that your awareness no longer scans the environment, no longer listens for anything unusual, because there is nothing to listen for. And this absence of expectation allows your thoughts to slow even further, stretching out into long, gentle intervals of quiet presence. When you walk outside now, it is less to explore and more to feel the air, to notice how familiar everything has become, how streets no longer feel empty but complete, whole in their stillness, and you move through them almost automatically, your body remembering paths without conscious direction, your feet finding their way as if guided by habit rather than intention. And this ease extends inward, where thoughts arise less frequently, and when they do, they drift softly, without urgency or weight. The world offers no surprises, and this consistency becomes deeply soothing, teaching you that stability can exist without control, that safety does not require vigilance, only trust, and you begin to rest not just when you sleep, but while you are awake, resting in the knowledge that nothing is about to change abruptly, nothing is approaching, nothing is waiting just out of sight. Eventually, even the idea of a zombie apocalypse fades completely, losing all meaning, because an apocalypse implies an ending. And what you are experiencing feels more like a long, quiet continuation, a pause that stretches so comfortably that it becomes its own form of existence. And the labels you once used to understand the world dissolve gently, leaving only direct experience, light, air, stillness, and the steady presence of your own breath. Inside the shelter, evenings blend seamlessly into nights, and nights into mornings, and you find yourself lingering in moments between sleep and wakefulness, where thoughts loosen their grip and images drift without structure. And these moments feel especially peaceful, as if your mind is learning how to rest without effort, without direction. Sounds become fewer, then almost non-existent, and silence itself takes on a softness, no longer something you notice, but something you are held within. And this silence does not feel empty, but full, like a calm ocean without waves, vast and stable. Memories no longer surface clearly, instead dissolving before they fully form, and plans no longer arise because there is nothing that needs to be planned, and the sense of self becomes lighter, less defined, not disappearing, but relaxing its boundaries, blending gently with the quiet world around you. You spend more time simply lying down, eyes closed or half open, letting awareness float without anchoring to any particular thought or sensation. And in these moments, the story you have been living no longer moves forward, no longer develops, because it has reached a place where development is unnecessary. The shelter, the streets, the sky, and your own presence all settle into a single, continuous stillness, and there is no clear line where one ends and another begins, only a shared calm that deepens gradually, without interruption. Breathing slows naturally, becoming almost imperceptible, and your body sinks comfortably into rest, muscles releasing completely, thoughts thinning until they are little more than faint impressions that fade as soon as they appear. The world remains quiet, unchanged, safe, and as the narrative gently loosens its final threads, there is no conclusion to announce, no final image to hold on to, only the soft certainty that everything is exactly as it should be. And in this certainty, the story does not end so much as it fades, dissolving slowly into silence, into stillness, into rest. leaving nothing behind that needs to be remembered, nothing ahead that needs to be faced. Only a deep, steady calm where awareness can finally drift, unheld, unbothered, and at peace.